Well, welcome back to Barber Motorsports Park here in Birmingham, Alabama. Round 4 of the 2025 NTT INDYCAR Series. And a monstrous storm hit this track overnight. Torrential rain, which has now cleared up for the time being. As
you know, these conditions right now, I could argue that the Alex Palou process of just sitting and watching is probably a very good one, because I don't know that there's a whole lot to be learned. Look at him just smiling, going, I don't know why these guys are on track right now. Because if it's dry tomorrow, James, there's really nothing to be gained by running slicks on a damp track. I like Palou's strategy, which is, hey, we've got a great race car in the dry. We know we're going to be strong. And all I want is running on the wet if rain comes at the end of the session. Otherwise, I agree with Palou. Just lay out, let this one go. What do you think?
Well, for me, I'm kind of with you. You know, it's not a very representative track condition right now. At the same time, yeah, if the rain is coming, then yeah, there can be some useful wet weather running to be had here later in this session. You can see just a couple specks of rain on this onboard from Santino Ferrucci. I would be waiting too, because tomorrow's going to be sunny. It's going to be in the 70s. Life's great. Life's grand. Not representative to what the conditions are right now.
So maybe not a lot to be gained, but plenty to lose if you make one big mistake, or little mistake, frankly, that just leads to a massive off.
Hello, guys, take us around this roller coaster of a circuit.
Well, we talked about speed at Barber. Look at the minimum speed in turn 1, 131 miles an hour, and then you start to climb uphill through turn 2. It drops down just a bit, but then up to top elevation and the heaviest brake zone on the track, turn 5.
Minimum speed there, slowest corner, turn 5, but a great passing opportunity. Then you rip down the first back straight. There's 2 of them here at Barber, into the blind entry, downhill, kind of corkscrew-esque 8 and 9 complex. Then you're back on the power through the back half of the racetrack, flat out through the 10-11 kink. And this is my favorite bit of racetrack on the whole calendar. 173 max speed going into 12. 164 minimum speed. You are barely slowing an Indy car down, really using the downforce through this section.
And you just can't see on the entry there to that chicane on the backside. It completes itself with turn 16 and 17 to finish the lap. And Barber, unlike anywhere else in North America, gorgeous, challenging, and fun.
Your fastest car right now out on track is this one, Rinus VeeKay. Kevin, what can you tell us?
So he's really just getting started for the weekend. They missed a lot of the practice session yesterday. They had an issue, essentially a bit of a setup error yesterday, so had to get to work. And they tried some things and some testing that they thought might work, didn't. They've gone back to what they've had in the past and feel, Rinus does, like he's in a pretty good spot. And so far in the early going, he's quickest.
And this is a guy who has form around this circuit, guys. A pole position here, his very first pole position, and only pole position at this circuit. It's a place he loves.
This run currently sits 4th right now as Rinus VeeKay got backwards.
Your 5th place man taking a little spin out there on track, gets it turned around.
That's the last corner. That's an easy one to have it go really, really wrong. As we take a look at how we got there. Just lost it on entry. Got there early. A little bit of a banking in that corner. That kind of helped him there. Kept the car on the racetrack. Did well to not lock up all 4 tires and just slide right off.
The halls, the open spaces, and
big off.
The action there. That's what we were talking about at the start of the session, is the risk of making a small mistake that leads to a big one. Pato Award, once he hit the grass,
That's
it
huge.
Took off on him.
He said lost the rear. Same exact place as we saw Rinus VeeKay. The difference, Rinus going all the way around by catching the slide. Award put himself offline and then onto the grass, which you mentioned at the top, T-Bell. Once you're on that grass, you are an absolute passenger.
Yeah, there was a lot of speed being carried there into the barrier. Red flag out on track naturally. Pato looks to be okay. Let's get a replay here.
You see him get off the brake to try to get through and try to stop getting all the way to the wall. But yeah, just that correction and catching it.
That really looked like maybe he went out on sticker blacks there, because, boy, the lateral loading was minimal. What do you see, James, on lap count?
Yeah, it does look like those were a new set of tires, only 2nd lap on them. And it's the way that that wall curves back in towards the racetrack. It's caught out a lot of drivers. I remember a few years ago, Alex Rossi had one there, nearly broke the car in half. It can be such a big impact. That's a fast corner. It's a lot faster than it looks because of the banking. And look at how fast the steering wheel spins around. This is why you see drivers in the IndyCar Series release their hands off the wheel before they go into a wall. You hang on to it as long as you possibly can, but when you know it's inevitable you're making contact, you get your hands off the wheel and avoid wrist, thumb, finger injuries.
Look at
it. Like bubble gum.
James,
Oh,
it's
my
fine.
word.
That's what I'm telling you.
That is unreal.
You know what? Full credit to Mr. George Barber and his staff here for investing in very forgiving barriers. I can't believe that front wing, it looks like it might be cracked on the right front main plane, but still,
That's incredible.
not a lot of damage.
You'll be changing the wing, but the fact that the suspension looks, I mean, it looks straight from everything we can see on that picture. You obviously can't see every piece of the suspension there, but he may have gotten away with it.
That was a monstrous impact.
It was.
And for that little damage, I am shocked with that.
The other thing to be concerned about, of course, is the steering rack, because we saw how aggressively the wheel spun. It would have
hammered
stopped.
lock to lock.
Exactly right. It would have stopped very abruptly.
That's
Look at these guys.
That's a look of relief from the 5 crew.
They would have heard the radio call from Pato saying, yeah, it feels pretty straight.
They're like,
It's a little bent, but I can drive a bunch of it.
little bent.
Yeah, it's scraping the right front of that wing
And some
along
smoke.
the floor. I think that's coming off the.
Tire rub, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the drivetrain.
Well, he is going to get a 5-minute hold for causing the red, but that's fine. It's going to take more than 5 minutes to give that right front corner a proper once-over, make any repairs that need to be made. But
I don't know that I would do this, actually. I think I would have taken the tow truck ride and saved that right front tire from any damage.
Well, a big impact for Pato O'Ward here, but incredible strength of these cars, incredible protection around this circuit means he's got going again.
And this guy right here, he's missing nothing. He is right up at the top. That was David Malukas, as we now see Marcus Ericsson, your quickest guy from practice 1 yesterday.
And we were talking, Townsend, about David Malukas yesterday, needs to get his season kick-started.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a little bit off his teammate Santino Ferrucci on qualifying and some of the results. But, you know, I just think David's settling in. He needs a pop, though, to your point. He needs sort of a pop performance. We talk about that. We talked about that with Marcus Ericsson for years. You know, you've got to have wow factor in this sport to remind people why you were selected for these opportunities in the first place. And I think for David Malukas, he's looking for that first pop moment of the season driving for AJ Foyt. But I would also say that one of the reasons he got this opportunity is Malukas does not make big mistakes either. So that's something that you look for, is that very fragile balance between tragedy and triumph, right? You're looking for the wow factor. You also don't want the wow mistake that derails your career. So Malukas walking the tightrope there.
There is a fine line between recklessness and courage.
Yeah.
A wise man once said. David Malukas, still your P1 man. Jack, what do you got on him?
Honestly, like you just said, Will, fine line between being a hero and it not working out. And I think that David is threading that needle really nicely. I managed to talk to him and his team boss, Larry Foyt, this morning. They weren't super happy with how yesterday went, but not because of speed, just because of some traffic. They both seem very relaxed. One thing Larry did mention, though, this is actually the first time that both of their cars have actually been based in Indianapolis. They've won the one car in Texas, one in Indianapolis, and they're just still working through perhaps a little bit of those, you know, new teething issues as everyone's together, but otherwise the four started today really strongly. Pato, I'm talking to you a little bit earlier than I really want to be in this session. Just tell us what happened there.
Yeah, I've lost the rear, and once I got into the grass, it's you're pretty much a passenger. It's really wet, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I touched maybe some paint, opening the radius into the corner. Maybe that's why I lost the rear, or maybe I didn't. I just lost it. I don't know. I need to see the replay, but yeah, as soon as I touch the grass, you're pretty much a passenger. And I'd say the damage isn't as bad as I thought, but the steering column is kind of, so we didn't really want to risk it with the nature of being such high-speed corners here. So yeah, we'll see what qualifying brings. It's definitely not been the best of weekends so far. So let's see. Yeah, and I just lost the rear and obviously took me to the grass. And at that point, I think it's just you're along for the ride.
That's Pato O'Ward. Better look later on.
I'm working with my engineers. I wonder if Graham. Whoa! Ericsson now. Is that over in turn 1?
And he's.
That looks like, I think it's turn 3.
Oh, look how much it's coming down.
Rain.
Wow.
God, these guys should have just, I mean, everybody should have bailed for pit lane, James. I thought a little earlier than this. Whoa!
Oh!
Fastest corner on the racetrack. We saw it on that track map. It's 160 miles an hour. And you saw the damage from landing.
Why, though?
Couple
with the rain
lucky.
coming down so heavily, why send it?
And he's
so aggressive.
Well, I think it's only coming down in one particular part of the circuit.
Yeah,
it looks to have started falling everywhere
you've
now.
Got an arrow screen. I mean, it's not a mystery.
Too hard of a hit.
Yeah, it's such a bummer. These cars, the Andretti Global machines, have been quick. Ericsson quickest yesterday in practice. You hate to have a moment like that heading into qualifying.
Oh, terrible. And had that hooked or caught an edge, he would have barrel rolled 9 times.
That was close.
Yeah.
That was really close.
As unlucky as he was to end up there, that was a very lucky, you know, sort of finishing position given what could have happened.
And what guys want is time on the wets to get ready for qualifying.
And, you know, we have only 9 minutes and 52 seconds to go in this session. Let's take a look. He turns in.
Gets the snap.
Gets the snap, just like Pato, overcorrects and then spins the other direction. But then watch this. Catches the lip. Ooh.
Oh, that was close.
And then look at the right rear as it comes down. Shatters the suspension. That's going to be floor damage, obviously suspension damage, potentially rear wing, maybe even the left rear as well.
So lucky he didn't dig in there when he launched and came down.
Starting to come down. This was right before Ericsson went through. This is one of the Meyer-Shank machines. That's Marcus Armstrong. Big save in 13. So the grip already starting to disappear before Ericsson got there.
Of the field, James.
Those
VK as off. VK's off.
But it continues.
That's down in turn 5 again. Manages to keep it off the barriers. Kyle Kirkwood, competitive relative terms, but yeah, it's still miles off what we saw from Alex Palou on that last lap. And here's what happened to Rinus VK getting in hot there. A little bit of rear lockup. Again, this is where the hybrid thing could be coming into discussion. It's going to affect the brake balance, can stop how much resistance is on the rear axle. And you just see that rear lockup, pitches it into a little bit of a spin. Did well to keep it rolling, though. He got right back to the throttle.
Nobody close, guys, to Alex Palou's pace right now in the wet. That's impressive, as the 51 of Jacob Abel also went for a ride.
You got to think it's a downhill brake zone into turn 5, so you've got all that momentum, that inertia from these heavy cars just carrying it down. So hard to woe it up when you're in these conditions.
And that outside line is kind of the normal approach, so all of the rubber that was laid down gets pretty slick.
And there's Will Power as well in turn 5. So that's definitely the problem area. And again, this is the kind of thing that Rossi and Foster are missing out on. Learning where the track quirks are in the wet this year.
Why is it turn 5 that's proving so difficult for everybody?
Downhill, you're carrying a lot of speed in there. It's just hard to slow a car up going downhill. It's, you know, gravity's working against you, and in these conditions,
and once the tire starts to really slide in the wet, you just don't have as much of a canvas to work with in terms of releasing and maybe doing something with your hands and feet to keep it on the racetrack. That downhill run right here is a ton of inertia, a lot of momentum for the cars. Look at how everybody's braking offline, like Ferrucci. There is Rasmussen breaking offline and then going wide of the turn-in point. Dixon taking the traditional line. As time runs out on practice 2. And boy, like we've talked about, James, if I'm Louis Foster or Alexander Rossi, I'm going to go sit in the truck and study tons of onboard video from my teammates, and I'm sure ruin the fact that I just missed 10 minutes of perfect practice if qualifying's wet.
And Lundgaard, you know, up there on the dry, putting in the miles in the wet as well. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm rewatching this practice session I'm trying to take in everything that you can learn from everything that we've been showing here, because there is a lot to learn right now.
And if I'm anybody other than Alex Palou, I'm going to be studying the 10 car, because just based on scanning the times, I don't see anybody even remotely close to that 21.9 he laid down in the wet. The other thing I notice is the rain has kind of chilled out a little bit, and the times have actually dropped off. That tells me that the wet tire is good when it is brand new, and those grooves are sharp as always to cut through the moisture. So you're going to have to get it done right away on new wets, if it's wet.
David Malukas, then your fastest driver for the third time in his NTT INDYCAR Series career in a practice session. From Alex Palou, Christian Lundgaard, Will Power, and rookie Louis Foster, one of a couple of drivers who didn't take part in this wet session. But the question mark remains, will it be a wet or a dry qualifying session? Believe it or not, blue sky now peeking out from behind the clouds. We are stepping very much into the unknown.